Today we have another BigCommerce Community Edition. I'm going to be releasing different channels of content and I will label them appropriately. I'm very passionate about community and building community, and most recently I've been involved in the BigCommerce community and learning how to build and make a bigger, better community. I spent 13 years in the Magento community and I'm still involved in the Magento community. But there's a space for SaaS and there's a space for open SaaS. Today we speak with Andrew Barber, who is with Space 48. They are a traditionally large community drivers putting on Mage Titans and most recently big DevX. We speak with Andrew about building apps, building community, and having fun in Scotland. I hope you can understand his accent. You will, I'm only joking. This is a great community building episode, and I encourage you to listen all the way to the end and share with your friends. Talk Commerce is sponsored by Haifa, or as the Europeans say, Hoofa, or the right way to say it. Hoofa is rapidly becoming the biggest Magento front end after Luma. For those who don't know it, Luma is the basic theme that comes with Magento, and it is giantly slow. If you're looking for a template-based front end with the fastest loading times in the e-commerce industry while saving costs on development time and hosting infrastructure, Hoofa is your best option. Everybody loves a fast site, including Google. Improve your Google ranking and conversion rates and make your customers happy. Learn more at hyva.io. That's hyva.io. My name is Brent Peterson, and I'm your host. Please remember to subscribe wherever you download your podcasts. And now, Talk Commerce. Welcome to this BigCommerce Community Edition of Talk Commerce. Today I have Andrew Barber, Andrew, as he corrected me, Andrew Barber, who is with Space 48. Andrew, go ahead and introduce yourself. Do a better job than I did. Tell us maybe your day-to-day role and one of your passions in life.
Yeah, sure. I'm Andrew. I'm an engineering manager at Space 48. One of my passions, I'm very much a community person in real life outside of BigCommerce. I'm part of local council, community council, and I also partake in scouting as a member in there too.
We mentioned in the green room I did the Great North Run in Newcastle a couple weeks ago, and my friend works at the council, and the council building, I don't know if they call it, not City Hall, whatever they call it in England. Really cool facility. It's built in the 1960s. It's listed. We met the Lord Mayor. We got our picture, and it was very cool. So, anyways, that's enough about British politics.
Yeah,
and I know that you're in Scotland, so we're not gonna dive into that. Before we get started, I know that you wanted to participate in the Free Joke Project, hashtag Free Joke Project, and I'm going to come up with a classy little jingle soon, maybe after Iron Brew. One of my favorite drinks. We can't get it here in the U.S. anymore, but they have some fantastic commercials. So I'm going to tell you a joke. In fact, today I have a poem for you. All I want to know is if you feel as though it should be free or if at some point we could charge for this joke. All right, ready?
Sure.
I dig, you dig, we dig, he digs, she digs, they dig. Isn't this a beautiful poem? Not really, but it's very deep.
That's good. I do like that one. Give me a good chuckle. I'd say open source and free on this one.
Good, yeah.
Bring it to the whole community. It's a good one.
Good. All right, so now you have a joke that you're going to tell us.
Yeah, let's throw this out in the green room. So I came prepared with a joke. So why did the programmer quit his job? He never got a raise. I feel like this should be the womp 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 moment.
Yeah. I'll admit your joke was much better than my joke. And for the programmers out there, that is a very good one. All right, so Andrew, today we're going to talk about BigCommerce community. Let's dive right in. I know that Space 48 put on the big DevX conference, and you did a hackathon around it. We'll talk a little bit about that.
The DevX conference that we did, I know you've spoken to Tom, so I was also involved in the organisation of that. So DevX is an internal conference that we do at Space 48 every month, where we get together and exchange ideas and implementations between the various squads at Space 48. So we brought that to the BigCommerce community. It was definitely Tom's idea, but brought me on board, and myself, Kieran and Dan managed to put something together. Straight after that, we heard about the BigCommerce hackathon, which was organised by the BigCommerce team. We partook, so we had 2 teams in there from Space 48. It was, I was going to say Tom's team. I can't remember what his name was, something like Leaping Planet Frog or something, I can't remember. And then there was our team as well, which was Galaxy Quest. So that was made up of 3 members of Space 48 that work in my current squad at the moment.
And Tom's team, Tom is based in Bath, so did his team really clean up?
They got a notable entry, so that's good for them. But maybe next year.
The big DevX, that was something that was open to the whole community. So talk about how you opened it up and how you've had some success now in building this community around BigCommerce.
Yeah, so we spoke about it internally, how we might approach this and how it might look. And I feel like while there's a lot of talent within Space 48 and the various squads that we have, I feel like it's better to open up to the community, and open up to the community and bring in external speakers, teams, and people that would like to talk about something in the BigCommerce space. So we put out an open invite in the BigCommerce Slack, developer Slack, Heather's spoken about recently. And so we got some replies back, some ideas of what people might like to talk about. We left it very open, just as long as it was discussing something within the BigCommerce kind of ecosystem. And we got some great talks. So we had talks about like Stencil, and the template and language handlebars. We had talks on creating B2B style stores, and the other talk that we had, and I'm going to have to check this one so we can edit this out. I'm really sorry. Can't remember the last talk. My goodness.
Is there plans to do an event in person in, say, Manchester for BigCommerce? You could call it Big Titans or something like that.
So I know that Space 48 are quite well known for their Mage Titans conference. I do believe we are organising another one. That's a hot take, but I do believe we are putting another one on coming soon. As for a BigCommerce conference, it's not something we're looking at the moment, but we might look to include other aspects into maybe developing an e-commerce conference instead of just a Mage conference. But yeah, watch this space. At the moment, nothing to announce.
The Space 48, watch that one.
That's right.
Tell us about some of the participation and how that worked online. Did it feel like a conference where you could participate online and enjoy yourself?
Yeah, so this was the first one that we had put on. I feel like there is improvements that we could definitely make in the future. We weren't sure what kind of like interaction we would have using the platform that we were using, and so I feel like that's something that we have taken back. There maybe wasn't enough opportunity to participate. What we did do, though, we did get some really good feedback from the community. There was discussion in the BigCommerce Dev Slack afterwards as well, which was good, which kind of people were talking about the ideas that had been discussed at the conference. I do feel like that is an improvement point that myself and Tom have taken away, and maybe we look at other platforms other than Zoom.
How about from an expectation standpoint, as a developer, what would you expect in something like a big DevX?
So I think we did have some really good examples of what I'd expect. Talks from like some Matt Cobb, where he was actually live coding, which is always challenging. I think that was a really good show. Tony McCreath as well, with his Core Web Vitals talk as well, went in depth of how developers can create amazing e-commerce experiences and obviously satisfy the big Google engine too. So I feel like it did meet expectations. And I feel like we always have to have one live code demo go wrong, at least at a conference.
Yeah, I've definitely have had that experience of doing things live on stage when you're not supposed to. You should be doing pre-recorded, but I think live is always more fun. So maybe explain, the hackathon was the BigCommerce version of it, and the Dev Exchange was more of the presenting some of the ideas. Is that how it worked?
I guess it was organised almost separately. There was a little bit of a line there. We did hear obviously that there was a hackathon coming, but none of it really tied in. I guess they're both just community events, and we hope that the people that partook in our conference also partook in the hackathon.
So I know that there's another SaaS platform that doesn't seem to have the same type of community. What do you think makes BigCommerce unique over some of the other SaaS commerce platforms out there?
Oh, good question. I feel like the willingness to help each other within the BigCommerce community at the moment is quite vast. Everybody's willing to help out and support each other, although we're all potentially working in different agencies and working on different projects. I feel like the Slack's a great place where people are constantly communicating ideas, new takes, new directions that you could look at a problem or a challenge, and I feel like that's quite unique. Additionally, it spills out into the forums as well. I don't partake as much there, but you can see it. Definitely when you Google a question, the BigCommerce Slack, BigCommerce forum does filter to the top there. But yeah, the willingness to help out and support each other, I think, is there, and it's pretty important.
Do you feel a difference from BigCommerce? Do you feel as though BigCommerce is very open to this whole concept of a community?
I think so, and I think it's improving. So I've been involved in BigCommerce development for a couple of years now, and I can see that it is growing and it's been nurtured well. New roles have been introduced at BigCommerce too in the last year or so, and I feel like they're helping to nurture the community in the correct direction.
Yeah, I think they have a community manager that I've just interviewed, and Heather, and she is fairly new to the role, and I think it's exciting that they're putting these resources in to building out a group of developers to help support each other around this idea of open SaaS. Do you feel as though the concept open SaaS is a real open source concept, or do you think it's a buzzword?
I think it's an ideal that they're working towards, and they're still filling out the definition almost of it. But what's good is they're happy for interpretation of the definition. And Katie, Heather, and the team are listening to feedback from developers to better the platform. I know in my involvement in the community, some of the ideas that I've fed back, I've seen roll back into the product, which is great. Other things that I'm passionate about, like open source, I've spoken to the team there, and things like the Hacktoberfest kind of idea has been floated about, and that seems to have now become a thing as well within the community. So I feel like the definition is still being defined, but I feel like they're helping define it.
I know one thing that BigCommerce often puts forward as open source is their checkout, and there's another popular SaaS platform that has a very locked down checkout. Do you think that's a good example of how a developer could get involved and make their own custom payment, say, and get it back up and running on a e-commerce or on a BigCommerce site?
Yeah, the open checkout's a large move, I guess, in the direction of open sourcing areas of it. So also, I'm not sure if you're aware, they've also just recently added the confirmation page into that as well, which is great to see that kind of project growing. Various other projects as well are open source, like the Stencil utilities and Stencil CLI. So we're seeing some good contributions there as well. Yeah, I'm all up for them open sourcing more of their project.
This whole concept of open SaaS, the whole idea of community. If I were a developer and I wanted to build an application, what's the best place to start?
So I feel that the documentation of BigCommerce pretty good, really good, and I feel like that is probably the area where you would start, right? I feel that's one place, and you're working almost insular. I feel like they also promote the forum quite often inside the documentation, and I feel like that's then your kind of next go-to, asking questions within the forum, gathering the experience of other developers on maybe a question or a concern that you have. And then the Slack community comes into that as well, and I feel that they're opening that up to more people now, where it used to be, I think, only agency partners that were part of the Slack, and now we're seeing people within development come through, which is really good to see. It's helping the kind of diversification of the community and the experience as well, where people have all had different experiences on different platforms, and they're bringing those ideas and thoughts into the community as well.
As a new developer, is there a role difference between building an application compared to just doing front-end work?
There is definitely difference in the way that you would handle it. So we saw that on the hackathon project that we put forward. So typically our work is working with the API, working on front ends, and so front end. And I feel like the application is a different experience. The way that it's produced, the way that you authorize and call APIs is slightly different. But if you're a slightly experienced developer on the BigCommerce kind of ecosystem, I feel like it does become a little bit easier. So either path, would lead to success in the other field, if that makes sense.
I just had the question the other day about developing a module on Magento compared to developing an application in BigCommerce. What would you say the biggest differentiators are in doing either one?
I'm going to have to skip this question. So I didn't previously work on Magento, and within Space48 I don't work on Magento, so I'm sorry, I can't answer this one.
No problem. I answered that Magento's self-hosted, so you're going to build an extension that's directly integrated into the code, and
sure.
An application from BigCommerce is self-hosted. So if I'm building it, so open question, if I'm building an app, is there a staging area that you can host your application in interim before the application gets launched? Talk us a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. When you're developing an application, you can run everything locally, so within your local environment. But as for staging the environment, I know that as partners, you can request a sandbox store to test the application on, and so then you can have almost a live environment that you can go away and test on. The authorization mechanisms for creating an app, you can basically get to a stage prior to submission of the app, which means that it's working like an app would coming straight from the App Store, and so you're able to develop in a very realistic environment. As for the likes of hosting this app and things like that, as you've mentioned, you do need to be looking at, for ourselves, in the hackathon we used Vercel, because we used an Next.js type app, just so that we could do front end and back end and all that fun stuff within one project. But I guess different apps are handled differently. I know that at Space here, our application code bases tend to be PHP and React, so that's slightly different to how we typically do things here.
And I guess that leads to my next question then, the skill set for a developer who's looking at developing apps on BigCommerce. It would just be JavaScript, maybe some PHP or some other back-end language?
Yeah, I feel for that there, you could come with multiple skill sets. So from back-end point of view, I guess it would depend on where you're hosting. You could even run sort of lambdas using Python if you really wanted to. Except that if you come from a PHP background, there we go, there's your favourite. Or if you're using JavaScript and Node.js, I guess you've got a whole handful of places to host it. As for the front end, that can be separate. And so that typically would be, like you've said there, HTML and JS sort of front end, or it could be a React front end. The application itself is iframed into the back end of BigCommerce. And so as long as it's hosted somewhere, you're not limited to a set language or a set skill set.
So as we close out the podcast, I give everybody a chance to do a shameless plug about anything you'd like to plug. Andrew, what would you like to promote today?
Sure. I haven't come with much prepared. I guess we could speak about Space48 slightly. So we are an e-commerce agency. We are platform agnostic, but we do tend to be Magento, Shopify and BigCommerce based. But we do look at other tools. And I guess, so you can follow us on Twitter, so we're at Space48ers, find us on LinkedIn, and we are actively hiring for developers in Magento practice and in the SaaS practice as well. So if you're interested in expanding into e-commerce development, please give us a shout.
Yeah, and I'm just going to add that I've been to many of the events that Space48 puts on, and they're super fun, so I hope they come up with the concept Big Titans. I'm going to let John steal that one. He probably already has it. But fantastic community events, very well organized, and extremely fun. And you get a trip to Manchester usually. Maybe it'll be in Glasgow this next time. Or could we understand what you're saying? I'm not sure. That's a joke.
That's
Sorry.
Very true. That's very true. We
Andrew,
do speak awfully fast.
Yes, they do, yeah. I remember I went to school in Birmingham, which is, for the American listeners, is south of Glasgow, and I took a bus from a coach from Birmingham to Glasgow, and then I changed and went to Edinburgh. And I remember them saying, I'm like, where's my next coach? And they said, J. And I'm like, is it J or G? I have no idea. So I eventually found it, but it was a little bit of a challenge to get the accent. I will say that the Geordie accent for me is much more difficult than even the Glaswegian accent.
Accents are definitely hard in the UK, that's for sure.
Andrew, thanks so much for being here today. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. I look forward to meeting you in person at one of the BigCommerce events, either in the UK or in Texas or who knows where. I look forward to building a bigger and better community around BigCommerce. Thank you so much for being here.
Perfect. Thank you, Brent, for today.
Thank you for making it to the end of this episode of Talk Commerce. Please rate this episode wherever you download your podcasts. We are actively looking for people to participate in the Free Joke Project. Go to talk-commerce.com and sign up for your free spot on the Free Joke Project. If you are a business, I will do a 30-second elevator pitch in the spot to help promote your business. That's talk-commerce.com.